Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Firstly, apologies to both members and to the public who may be wanting to watch the meeting. We are having problems with electronic communications this evening, so hopefully the meeting will be being recorded and will be available for use at a later date. So that's the first issue I think perhaps ought to raise and note. Hopefully officers will be aware of this issue, I'm sure, and are taking action to ensure some sort of remedial action is taken so that in future this doesn't become a problem. Following on from that, we are having problems with the recording, etc. tonight, and there is a mic which will be handed to anyone who's wanting to speak at any given time. What I will ask is to ensure that it's switched off once you've finished speaking, please, so that we can then move on with the next item of business or move it around. If you do wish to speak, please indicate as normal, put your hand up and I'll come to you as noticed, sort of thing. As I say, if there are more than one person wanting to speak, I'll obviously direct that at the appropriate time. So, moving on. As I say, it's being recorded. Right, item 1, evacuation procedures for the meeting. There's not a fire drill expected for this evening. We've got no members of the public here. So I only intend to go through the fire drill. If you hear the fire alarm, please exit by the marked doors and we'll meet outside the Lloyds Bank. Apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Neil Phillips, and I've also had apologies, or notified of apologies from the Mayor, who's on mayoral duties this evening. Got no substitution for Neil Phillips or Mayor, no. Item 3, the minutes. Members will have had copies of the minutes. I'll go through them by page and then if there's anything members want to raise. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Not seeing any indications. Members happy that those are signed as a true and correct record? I'm seeing lots of nods, so I'll take that and happy I agree, sign that. Those are done. Thank you. Moving on, declarations of interest. There's no additional declarations other than those printed that I'm being made aware of. So members will, I'm sure, indicate if they realise there's something that's personal to them as we go through any debates. Public consultation. There's no members of the public here indicated to speak, so move on to question 6. Questions to Cabinet members. Any indications from members of the committee, this is, who want to ask members a question to Cabinet members? No? No? It's going to be... No, you can put it down. Thank you. The other... one point I should have mentioned, I've been a request, because of the problems with the microphones and recordings, we are going to slightly change the agenda running order and take item 12 at this point, and a presentation from Maria, the planning officer, so that we can try and get some sort of regulatory actions within the meeting. Maria, are you there? Can just hold, please. we've not got any sound.
Maria, can you hear me? We're not hearing you. She was talking, but we're not hearing her.
Right, can you hear me now?
That's it. We're
Sorry.
well, yes, we can.
Sorry, members. I will start again. Thank you.
So this is item 12.
This report is brought to you as a result of an issue that arose within the planning service over the summer months, when an application for a large roof extension to a property, which was actually given permission in breach of our own planning policy. Now, the complaint went to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman quite correctly found fault with the council. You will see from the report that that did lead us to having to pay compensation. You'll see reference to an appendix, but that is not actually attached because those reports must remain confidential. But aside from the payable compensation, the Ombudsman also requested that we undertook a thorough investigation, and we looked at procedures to try and ensure that this situation didn't arise again.
Just need to hold just a second, because
we did that. There was a number of issues. The firstly
Keith, I'm not
was
sure
the
you can be
issue
recording
with
this. Just hang on
failure
a
to
second.
consult with one of the neighbours. Yes.
So you mentioned confidential reports and items might be being discussed within this No, the report isn't attached, but Maria might be telling us something off of the report. That's what I'm saying, trying to find out.
Chair is concerned that there's nothing in your presentation about the confidential side of the site.
No, there's nothing, Councillor.
That's okay. You can carry on recording then, if that's the case.
Thank you. As part of the investigation, the first element was to look at why a neighbour wasn't consulted. At the moment, we have got software within the planning system that's probably about 25 years out of date compared to other software. So there is a lot of emphasis on officers having to basically manually ensure that everybody's consulted who should be consulted. We have put in place for the moment that consultation record is double checked by the line manager, but moving forward we are also in the process of acquiring some new software for the planning department to take away some of the elements that basically software could do for us without having to have a manual input from planning officers. So that area is being covered in two aspects. The other area, of course, was down to how come we actually permitted something in the first place that was a breach of planning policy. Again, we have put additional checking mechanisms in place so that senior planning officers are now checking all the applications and decisions of junior officers. We did have senior officers doing this, but not such a great number. And at the time when the issue arose, I will be honest in that we were overburdened with the amount of applications coming in, which made it difficult for us to have so many people checking. But those checking mechanisms are now in place. We have had separate training sessions because it was in relation to what was seen to be permitted development and what was not. So we undertook a face-to-face 3-hour training session with all the planners on permitted development. I've also looked at increasing the training budget to make sure the planners are all up to date on their professional skills, because as you're probably aware, planning legislation is changing all the time. We have a very young team, and I felt it was prudent to make sure we'd got enough in the training budget to keep them all up to date. And obviously the recent restructuring planning has also now added to the complement of staff, because we have got an additional apprentice, an additional graduate planning officer, and it does mean, unfortunately, that planning appeals aside, we have a more manageable workload in terms of actual planning cases. So I'm asking scrutiny panel members to recognise the processes now put in place to support practices, and also obviously the review of the current software, because I am looking to try and ensure we remove as many of the manual potential areas of failure as possible, to in the hope of preventing these issues again, and feel that at the moment we have done everything we possibly can to try and avoid this in the future. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Maria, for that presentation. I'm just looking around if any members have got any questions or queries in relation to that presentation that we've received from Maria. Councillor Hartshorn.
Thank you, Maria, for that presentation. Would it be possible, I don't know if other members might be inclined, for us to see a preview of the new software that's due to come out? I know we had a similar presentation with the customer service programme that came in. Would it be possible for us to see the new planning one as part of that process?
So Maria, is Maria picking that up, or is she hearing us?
No, I can answer. I'm just seeing Maria's just typed the question for me. Yes, by all means, we are going through the procurement process at the moment, but as part of that process, I will be setting up a session for all the planners to actually look at it. They've already seen it, but I'm setting up a separate session, and I'm quite happy to invite members. Obviously, if that is a daytime meeting and you can't attend, then I'm happy to set up something separately for members. You'll be amazed in what this new software can do. I have used it at other planning authorities, and I can certainly say it really helps in managing what is quite a complicated process.
Thank you. Right, I think members are content with that. I'm not seeing any other indication. Councillor Morton. So it's Councillor Graham Morton.
Thank you. Marie, could I just ask a question on the consultation with neighbours? I know this is very anecdotal, but I've been involved with two sets of residents trying to oppose quite big, substantial building developments, and one of the cries I'm getting constantly is, "We haven't been told." And I did actually talk to planning about this, and they said, "Well, we comply with the law. The notices go on a few lampposts which get ripped off, and it is an issue." And I just wondered if the training element is going to cover this as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Morton. Maria, did you pick that up?
I didn't. I'm just waiting.
Okay.
I think Maria's typing the question for me.
I think it's coming through to you now.
Yeah, in relation to one of the things that we've done with consultation, we did look at the geographic information system that's linked to the software. And again, although that is dated, I haven't managed to get one of the officers to set up a system by which the officers now don't have to identify individual properties that are affected by a proposal. There is a way in which the geographic information system can help them to do that. obviously moving forward with the new system, it will be even better. As I say, at the moment, it is very much a manual process that most software systems now pick up and do for a planning officer. So again, we've put a stopgap in with what we're using currently to assist. It's still not 100% foolproof, but certainly with the new software, we'll be improving on that even more.
Thank you, Maria.
I mean, I would say that we do over notify, not only in terms of neighbour notifications, but we also do site notices. And we don't have to do that. It's not required in legislation, but we actually, as an authority, we do more than's required by legislation on the consultation front.
Thank you. Councillor Morton, you're content with the reply? Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other indications. So the recommendation are that the committee notes the contents of the report, note that the council is committed to improving the service has been identified by Maria through the ongoing restructure and investment in the planning service, and note the specific measures being put in place to avoid similar costs occurring to the council against the council in the future. Members happy to note that report? All in agreement? Any abstentions? Oh, sorry, any against, should I say first? Any abstentions? That is approved. Right, moving on. All right, we'll move. Thank you, Maria, for that report. You may want.
Thank you.
You may want to hold with us. I know somebody else is perhaps presenting the next report, which is about the King's Home. It may be helpful if you're still online and able to answer questions if the officer's here or not. So we'll move back to the original report.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'm just waiting. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
We've got. We've done the questions to Cabinet, so we're going back to the agenda items as previously set out. So item 7 is the council call for action, the King's Home site in Nuneaton. So did you want to present that, Maria, or?
Yes, I can present that, Chair.
Okay, well, over to you. Thank you.
As you'll be aware, members, there has been a call to action about the King's Home public house property, which is obviously causing quite a few issues for not only the Borough Council but other statutory services as well. I was tasked alongside colleagues to look at what powers we had potentially under planning legislation and building control legislation to take action. I did do that, but in the meantime, the owner of the site actually submitted an application to demolish the building. You'll see from the report that application came in whilst I was writing the report, but we had to give it the requisite consultation period, etc., before we could make a decision on it. But I'm now able to advise that the application was permitted on the 30th of November. We have been in contact with the agent working for the landowner, and the landowner is keen to get on and demolish it. He is abroad at the moment, but when he returns, he will start work on the demolition.
Okay, thank you. Any members? Councillor Coventry Morton.
Thank you, Maria. I'm just inquiring about this review of the law. Could you help me with the issues we've got in Bedworth surrounding some of these buildings that need demolition in King Street? So it would be the old British Queen pub and the old cinema. They're absolutely appalling.
I'm not sure. It's not relating to the item on the agenda before us. So I think that's a question possibly to Maria, either via phone or out of this meeting, to be honest with you. It's not in relation to this particular item in the council call
Okay,
for
well, I
action.
have mentioned it, so I'm quite happy with that.
Okay, I'm sure Maria will get back to you with some sort of response, but I don't think it's part of this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, but thank you for the question. Councillor Cape.
Maria, will that application go to a planning council meeting, or is it being dealt with already for demolition?
There's just a slight delay here in getting a response from Maria. I suspect it's delegated authority by the sound of it. These decisions been made.
I'm just a little bit concerned that conditions are put on because I believe the owner also demolished other sites whereby the groundwater, etc., wasn't taken into account, and also the screening wasn't taken into account. So I just want to ensure that if this goes ahead, that all of the conditions to make sure that groundwater is considered and that also the screening of the site is done properly and how that's going to be conditioned.
Okay, thank you. I don't just hold for a response on that.
Yeah, I'm just... Yeah, I mean, in terms of the planning application itself, there is no conditions, but obviously in terms of building regulations and demolition, then there are issues that have to be adhered with. So we will be ensuring that it is undertaken in accordance with those building control regulations.
Okay, thank you. Any other members' queries on this? There is one point I feel we should mention. Obviously, it was a councillor call for action, this one. I note the member who put the call for action is unable to be here tonight. However, I think we need to ensure that we get some acknowledgement of the call for action and the actions being taken, and that a response is sent to that councillor. Members agree with that? Okay, so we'll ensure that that is done. And if you can update us once the applicant returns on any future demolition dates, I think that would be helpful as well. Members would be appreciative of that information.
Yes, I'll pick that up, councillor, that will ensure those councillors that did the call for action are informed.
Thank you.
And also, I've just picked up on that you'd like to be made aware of demolition dates, which I can let you know once he's back in this country.
I think that'd be helpful. Thank you very much. Members happy with that report then as set out? Yep, not seeing any dissent from that. So moving on. Item 8.
Okay, thank you. I'm okay to leave.
Yes, thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Item 8, update on development in the Nuneaton Town Centre. I know Councillor Condacor, you had indicated you wish to speak on this item.
Can we have the presentation first?
Usually, yes, we do have the presentation, so we'll have that first. Is it yourself that's going to give the presentation?
Later.
Unfortunately, Les couldn't be here because of family bereavement, so they've asked me to pick up any questions in relation to his report, and obviously happy to feed those back from there.
Right, so I haven't actually got a presentation then as such, unless... Councillor Smith, did you want to say anything on this at all? Oh, sorry, is it yours, Councillor Wilson? Did you wish to say anything on this before we actually take the question?
I can do, and I'll try and respond to any questions, but I don't have the technical knowledge. I have the policy knowledge, as it were, Chair. The report is split up into I think it's 4 distinct areas. So the first one is Grayson Place, and we have had the topping off ceremony for Grayson Place, and that is on schedule to complete for the 31st of May. That is not just the building complete itself, but the internals where it will be handed over to Hampton by Hilton, and then they will be able to begin trading properly from that site, and then obviously we'll be looking for the income stream that we would receive from Grayson Place Hotel. We have now got most, if not all, of the planning consents in place for the other sections of the site, which is being labelled as Phase 2. We are, as has been highlighted in several committees and in full council, undertaking a full review of the finances of all the sites, because I don't think anyone can have missed the fact that we've been through inflation rises, interest rises, and that things don't cost the same as they did when all the plans were submitted to government and worked out in 2019, 2020 and signed off at that point. So there is some updating works to be done, and we are waiting for them at present. We had hoped they'd be with us this week, but they have been delayed, and officers are chasing up on that work. In relation to Vicarage Street, I will be careful, as I am a member of the planning committee, but that is currently with the planners, the planning department, to determine whether planning consent should be given. It's been with us at the Borough Council as a joint application, as it were, because if we'd have left the library element to the county council, which for their regulatory committee, then it wouldn't have taken into account the housing element, and vice versa, that if at the Borough Council's planning applications, it wouldn't have taken into account the library setup. So to ensure that everything is considered together, it's been agreed that it will be dealt with at the Borough Council's planning stage, and we'll wait to see what happens with whether that is determined or not favourably or otherwise. Bridge to Living, again, that's part of the wider re-evaluation of the costs and affordability, because we need to ensure that the impacts on the budget are sustainable and can be paid off. And that is something that myself and the portfolio holder for finance are keen on. And then finally, there is the Debenham store chair. Again, that is with planning. It isn't something we have in our control, but it's something that we are monitoring because of its impact within the town centre and near regeneration sites. So we are, for want of a better phrase, keeping a watching brief on that to see how things unfold and develop. Last I heard, there was an issue with the planning department about looking at the car parking provision with the application and whether that actually meets our standards on that front. Obviously, again, as a member of the planning committee, I won't comment on the specifics of it, but until we the planning department haven't yet been able to make a determination on it to bring it to committee or to make a decision one way or the other. I am happy to try and answer questions which are within my knowledge, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. We have the report, as does Councillor Condacall before him, so if you want to ask your question or make your comments now, Councillor Condacall, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hit me okay? Yeah. A few things. It was said the hotel's on schedule. It's not on schedule. It's supposed to have been years ago. And obviously we had the topping out ceremony, which wasn't actually topping out because it was still running a few months late. My understanding is the building should be handed over at the end of May, but obviously there's training and things, so it may be 3 months or so before it actually starts taking customers. So it's good to put that on the record. Also, there's lots of issues around Grayson Place. I have, particularly, we had the car park go to planning a few weeks ago. I do think the design has been botched and isn't very good for like disabled access, etc. The lifts are at the wrong end. There's lots of issues about what route disabled people will take from the car park to the cinema, for example. And there's lots of issues about the other developments, the leisure offer. It seems quite a good operator we've got lined up for the cinema if it happens. But yeah, there's lots of issues that need sorting out. And then going on, we mentioned the Debenhams. That is very dependent upon what happens with flooding and all these things. I don't think it needs car parking space. If someone buys or leases a flat right in the centre of town, you're not going to be a person with lots of cars. You just wouldn't go in there. But there are lots of issues about flooding, obviously, 'cause it's on the anchor, and lots of opportunities, because it would be really nice to open up that corridor so people can walk along the river. Bridge to Living, it really needs the flood alleviation stuff looking at. We have to make the site bomb-proof in terms of flooding. And in spite of what was said at Cabinet last night, I don't want to flood Whitford Park. I don't want to spend £10 million. It's not even a county council project, that. But we do need to look at the flooding for all the town centre projects to make them secure. Otherwise, people won't get insurance. If we build particularly like Bridge to Living retail units and they flood every 20 years, they'll stop getting insurance. So we do need to look at what measures we take, and a more sensible flood alleviation scheme that actually just reduces the risk at an affordable cost. And yeah, I'm not always against these projects, but we do need to get the details right. And this is why I'm particularly annoyed at the car park, having such lousy access for disabled people and having the cars going in on the pedestrian route out. It's just nuts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condacourt. Whilst there are a number of comments in there, I'm not sure whether there are actually any questions as such, but did you want to pick up, Councillor Wilson?
I can pick up on a few points.
Any of those points?
Chair, well, the hotel is on schedule. There were issues to begin with to do with funding and getting all the other ducks lined up in a row, but as soon as we were able to do that, it has been going ahead at great pace. And as I have said before, and indeed yourself, Chair, because you visited alongside me, we went twice in, I think, the space of 2 or 3 weeks, and the amount of difference there was in just 2 or 3 weeks' time was tremendous. So they are not only doing the physical construction going up, but as soon as a level has gone up, they're going to the level below and starting the works there. In terms of the car parking, Chair, I believe that's a planning issue to be determined by the planning committee, and it was dealt with, and he was on the losing side of the argument, and there's no point going further back on that. In relation to flooding and flood alleviation, I can't be any clearer than I have been in the past, Chair. The professional advice that we received was that the £1 million budget, which was initially in the Towns Fund for flood alleviation scheme, was not enough to do the work needed, that the professional water architects, whatever you want to call them, deemed necessary to completely remove the flooding risk to the town centre. Their advice was that I received that that there should be a new provision at Whittleford Park for a new lake reservoir. We haven't got the funding for that. The £1 million will not stretch to that, and it will cost in excess of £10 million to do that. I cannot stretch £1 million into £10 million, Chair. And if that is, if there are no other viable projects, then it makes sense to distribute that money elsewhere so that we can ensure that other projects are able to go ahead given the current financial situation. But as I have said, and in specific response to the insurance point, a lot of modelling was done on the flood zones within the town centre to update them, because they haven't been done properly since the 60s and 70s. And now we have got better modelling of where the water should and would go in the event of the flooding scenarios, and the maps have been redrawn and updated with the necessary authorities. That will have a direct impact on the insurances of the businesses there, and may actually help them reduce some of their premiums. If it actually now works out, they are no longer at as much risk as they were previously. So we are doing what we can, Chair, in exceptionally difficult circumstances and the economic headwinds that we are facing, and we are trying to get through them as best we can.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So I'll now open the item up to members of the committee. Any member want to speak or raise any points on this? Councillor Hartshorn.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the Vicarage Street development, what's the rationale behind the family homes part of that application? As it is inside the ring road, it is next to all the nightclubs and pubs, and having larger family homes, I don't know whether that would be potentially the right choice going forward, but I just wondering what was the sort of reasoning behind it, if able to be provided.
Okay. Perhaps we'll take a few. Any other members indicating? No? So back to you, Councillor Wilson. Are you able to provide any rationale behind that?
Well, we had professional consultants come in to evaluate what exactly was possible within the site boundaries, and they also looked at it in comparison to the surrounding areas, and it was their professional advice that we received that it needs to be a mixture of tenures. So what we don't want to do is dump an endless supply of flats in the town centre, because that will create other problems within the town centre which we want to avoid. And in a way, it's kind of a case of buyer beware. If you're looking at a property and it is a family home within the ring road, then that you go in with your eyes wide open about whether you build that or not. But we need the priority for us was bringing this derelict land into use. I mean, the job centre has been there for the best part of 15 years, I think, completely demolished, and other areas, and it is not looking the best as an introduction into the town centre. So what we want to do is try and bring that forward. So we are waiting for the outcome. Maybe the officers decide that the mix of tenure isn't right. I've got to wait for that information to come forward, Chair. But we're doing what we can to bring it forward. And ultimately, it's bringing brownfield land back into use. And that is something that we're very keen on, that instead of building on Greenbelt, we want to try and use previously utilised land and bring it back into use rather than sit there endlessly doing nothing and just being an eyesore. And as I happen to know from personal experience, walking back to work from the town centre, seeing it as a rat habitat, it's not a very good advert for the town centre, and you can see them scurrying into the wasteland, and we need to try and deal with that on a permanent basis.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Not seeing any other member indicate. Excuse me, I will make comment in relation to, I am aware, as I say, in relation to the flooding issues, that the local authorities, and indeed I believe Severn Trent, are involved in redrawing the maps of flood areas within the Nuneaton town centre. Hopefully, as you've identified, they will come out of or some of them will come out of the critical area of flood that's previously been identified, and hopefully that will encourage further development, and the insurance is on those buildings and properties in those areas. So I think that's good news to note that's moving forward, and will also encourage the businesses to invest in the Nuneaton. So I note the report as set out. Any other comment from members? No? Are you happy to note that report on item 9? Those in favour? None against. So that brings us on to item 10, the forward plan. Oh, sorry if I missed one. Item 9, I beg your pardon, town centres. I looked at that and then skipped over it. Sorry, Councillor Condicoy, hang on, you want to speak on this one as well, but is there a presentation before?
My report was submitted. I'm quite happy to talk through some of the headline figures just quickly, if you would like me to do that.
Please.
Okay, I submitted a similar reporting for Q1. The comparisons that I put in here for some of the stats are for Q2 last year, the Q2 this year. Headline figures are really around sort of a footfall. Nuneaton is 22% up on last year's figures to Q2, and Bedworth footfall is down 4%. These figures are still significantly behind pre-COVID figures, which is a pattern very much across the country at the moment. Those are minus 36% again for Nuneaton and 49% for Bedworth. We are seeing the dwell times in terms of the length of visit that people stay within the town centre are still up significantly in both town centres. So moving on to car parking revenue, again, similar picture to quarter one. We were actually 3% down on quarter two figures last year. But if you take into account the additional income that did come last year from surface car park at Abbey Street, which was about 86,000, and take that out, the remaining car parks are 13% up on revenue. We are continuing to see an increase in the amount of people processing the payments through the new Ringo system, so the pay-by-card system. That has increased and is continuing to increase. In fact, it's getting closer to sort of 25% at the moment. Market stall numbers. Nuneaton was 2% down on the second quarter last year, and Bedworth was 5% down. I've broken down some figures there in relation to the trading days in Nuneaton and the lock-up split and casual traders in Bedworth. So those really are sort of the headlines, and happy to take any questions on those.
Thank you for that. Councillor Condicle.
Thank you, Chair. It's always useful to have the report first to give us some context. I mean, on the positive, the changes to paying by phone has been something we should have done years ago. We should be in contactless. We should make it as easy for people to come to Nuneaton as possible. And there's probably a lot more to do on that, and likewise with Bedworth. A couple of points I wanted to make. One is I visited the town yesterday by bicycle. Absolutely freezing day, and I wasn't the only cyclist in town. We do get trade by bicycle. We do get trade by bus, and I think particularly with the government's £2 bus fare scheme, it's not an expensive way to get to town on the bus service if it's running. But we still don't have any plans for what's happening with bus services and the drop-off points in terms of transforming Nuneaton, etc. So I do hope we're keeping an eye on what percentage come in by bus and how we can get those sort of numbers up. And toilets is always a big issue, particularly in the cold winter months. And I keep mentioning signage to toilets and those sort of things, so that visitor experience is good, particularly in Bedworth, where they are in the market, which it might not be obvious to someone on the main parade of shops. And that would be a positive thing. We've also got the changing places stuff coming in, which for Bedworth I think is going to be at the market, but for Nuneaton it might be at the Pingles or somewhere. So I don't know what we're doing about toilets in terms of signage and progressing that. And it's really, really positive to have a market. I do try and support it as much as possible, but I really do fear for it. So I do hope we're doing as much as we can to look after and talk to our traders, and also what offers we can do when the spring comes to actually get some new traders in, because it is not an expensive thing to do to actually talk to someone and put a few stalls out and have a few introductory offers and things. And I think it would be really good to get new people in. We need new blood, new things sold, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Right, there wasn't any question in that per se, unless you wanted to comment, Councillor Wilson.
I can answer some of the points.
So there's a few comments in there, but if you want to comment on those.
Thank you, Chair. So in relation to changes to payments by phone, I completely agree with Councillor Condicle. It has been ridiculous about the fact that we have had some challenges with different methods of payment, actually, including payment by card as well, as we experienced during the COVID pandemic. One of the things that we experienced, and myself and Jonathan have spoken about this at length a number of times, is we were tied into a contract that was 20 years long, sorry. And we've only just had the provision to get out of that contract to enable us to look at other potential contracts, which has enabled us to bring in Ringo and also in future look at, as we move forwards, changing the card payment machines, which we are working on as well. The tender is written or on its way to being written. Yeah. Yeah. So because we have no choice but to do it anyway, because 2G is being phased out, and a lot of our, I think if not all of our machines are on 2G, so we have to move anyway with the times. But what we're hoping to do is deal with two issues at once, which will be bringing card payments as well to give more choice about how we do that. Bus points, myself and your good self, Chair, have been working on this on a number of occasions in our Transforming Nuneaton meetings, and we have been pushing the argument with County Council about wanting to bring buses further into the town centre. We are looking at the possibility and have been pushing, trying to turn Abbey Street, where we are having the regeneration, into a shared zone, so that we can actually bring buses down Abbey Street, then round at the George Eliot Memorial, and then down into the bus station that way, so that you could have people dropping off at the bus at that end of town, because we know that there are mobility issues for a number of our elderly residents. So if they can stop off at that end of town, it might be better for them, and likewise on the way out as well. That is subject to County Council approval and having the budgets, etc. I think we have an agreement in principle that we would like to do it. It's just about how we do it and how it is funded. But I think that is actually a positive step in the right direction, that we seem to have an agreement in principle that needs to be looked at. Change in places provision for a toilet in Nuneaton. It will be required as part of the new library to have a change in places toilet in the library, and as I mentioned earlier, that's with the planning team to assess that. And then in terms of the traders, we're always looking at that, and myself and Jonathan and Lorraine, we're looking at setting up a meeting in the new year with the traders. I go and visit the traders roughly once a month and pop my head around the market stall to see them. And I'm pleased that now Lorraine is taking the reins, shall we say, with the market traders, and she is very well respected with them, and will look at every opportunity to ensure that every possible square metre of the town centre is utilised in the best way, and has that good working relationship with them. I know she will be too modest to say that, but I've actually seen it in practice with the traders. So I'm really pleased that the team is moving in the right direction in terms of its shape as well, to try and drive that change forward.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to ask about Bedworth Market on that point.
Did you want to make comment on Bedworth at all?
In relation to what, sorry?
What the new traders could obviously reconfigure Bedworth Market possibly.
Right, in relation to Bedworth Market, we are looking at reconfiguring that. There is still work to be done in terms of the tender to look at what the art of the possible is, given the budget that we have, which is about 713,000 from memory, and then that we will be discussing that with the traders in Bedworth as well to try and do that. So we are working on a two-pronged approach on that. But your primary question, as I understood it, if I misunderstood it, I apologise. No, I don't forget Bedworth. In fact, I get a number of queries from Bedworth, but I thought your main question was about the traders in Nuneaton. So, but we are working on Bedworth as well.
Thank you.
You've got any points to clarify?
Just a few bits from that. In terms of the car parking offer and the switch towards cashless systems, it does look likely that they will go to an open market process for the apps and the payment apps from next year. It's being trialled in a couple of locations at the moment, but that will have, we just need to understand the potential knock-on of that, so that any of the apps, rather than us being tied into an individual one, if you've got an app for pay by phone or you've got an app for Ringo, you can use that at the car park. So that's being looked at the moment, and we are keen, obviously, to move forward as quickly as we can with that. We've done a soft market tender process in relation to that, so we've got some idea of the costs. We've looked at the number of machines that we potentially need, and we're just sorting out the mix now between having an element of cash provision there, and then moving more towards the cashless systems in relation to that. So, yeah, we're looking at in terms of Bedworth market, we are looking to meet with the traders very shortly. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, just to have some consultation around the proposals as to what they would like ideally from an improved market position there. And part of the reason as well that we considered moving the changing places facility was there, because we can see that as, if that is right and we can start driving footfall into there, the changing places facility is ideally placed adjacent to the major retail stores, the bus stops within Bedworth, and obviously then potential event space for the market itself.
Thank you. Right, so to members then. Any members wishing to comment or ask any further questions on the report? No? I'll make a couple of comments in relation to that. I mean, there are, as I say, all options still to be able to get into town, cycling, even taxis, your own vehicles, buses, and I must admit, I'm pleased that the £2 journey fees are still being kept for another, I think it's the end of next year, so that hopefully encourages people to continue coming into our towns. So that's really good news. You mentioned briefly about the Ringo, and you mentioned about the app, and I was going to ask if there is an app that you can get as well, so you can do it on the app as well as.
The Ringo app is purely an app.
It's purely app based. Okay.
Yeah, but it's compared to the previous platform. Ringo's the market leader. It's very well known. It's not as clunky, it's very easy to use, and I think that's part of the reason that we've seen that increase in it, because the process is a lot easier and a lot smoother.
Okay.
And certainly online and app-based applications are increasing significantly. One of the neighbouring, we've been speaking to the neighbouring authorities to understand what they've been doing and the shift towards that. And one of the neighbouring authorities has now moved to 30% cash, 70% card payments. So it's a significant shift towards that offer.
That's good. And I suppose following on from that, my question around it is going to be, obviously in the past we've experienced non-payment of parking charges. Can you give any indication as to the impact on whether that's going up or down?
It's difficult to quantify whether it's up or down, because by definition, if we don't know that they've not paid, you don't know what you don't know, because if they've got a ticket from someone else and you haven't observed it, it's very difficult. We have anecdotal evidence from officers to say that they have seen the swapping. I've seen it myself. I was offered a ticket myself just out the back. But one of the things that we're looking at with the new tender is to have vehicle registration numbers. So we already have AMPR. There are additional complications with that, as explained to me. But we're looking at trying to, as we've experienced out the back of the town hall, put on the vehicle registration number so that you can tie someone to the particular ticket.
Okay. And would that be carried forward into the new constructions on Grayson Place?
Yeah, that's the proposal. We have, as the leader said, we did put the keypads into the back car park here, and what we have seen is that we have seen a fall in the number of penalty notices that we've issued since that. It's difficult to sort of interpret at this point how it's affected revenue, but certainly in the likes of Rope Walk, we would look at an AMPR system there, which would give us the ability really to deal with concessions more effectively, which is the issue that we've got at the moment with Rope Walk in particular. AMPR, there are some limitations to it at the moment in terms of rolling it out to all car parks. It's a significant investment. You cannot issue notices retrospectively in relation to AMPR as well, so you do need a barrier system. So the proposal would be at the moment that we look at our multi-storey car parks and the provision of AMPR while moving to a newer, more sophisticated system in our surface car parks.
It is in the in your remit sort of thing to take those points forward.
Yes.
And are aware of them and the opportunities that will exist around them to ensure that we maximise our income from the car parks and ensure that we make those that should pay do pay.
Yes.
Thank you. Not seeing. Oh, Councillor. Right.
On the subject of car parking, wouldn't it make more sense, rather than having a one-size-fits-all approach to car park charging, wouldn't it make more sense to have a more flexible system of charges? Because it seems that some car parks are losing money because they charge too little, and others are losing money because they charge too much.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to switch the mic off. And Jonathan, did you want to pick up on that, or Councillor Wilson, did you want to?
I think that's more a political question
Possibly.
than anything else. I would disagree with Councillor Wright. I think the evidence is actually speaking for itself. If you look particularly at the dwell times, for example, we are seeing massive increases in the average dwell time. So Nuneaton has gone from 135 minutes in 1920 to 204 minutes in 23-24, and Bedworth has gone from 1920 124 minutes to 211 minutes in 23-24. And it's not just necessarily about the pricing itself, it's about trying to encourage people to stay longer in the town centres and spend more money locally, Chair. And if they think they have a better offer, but they haven't got to constantly clock watch all the time and think, oh, I've got to get back now for my car before it runs out, now they have the opportunity to stay a bit longer and perhaps go and get a coffee or a panini, or go to the batch bar, or look in the windows and have a bit more of a mooch around and shop and use the markets. We have to try and make it as advantageous to people to stay longer in the town centres to keep the money local, Chair. And I think that is important to keeping our businesses going.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other member? So the item 9, Town Centres update. Thank you very much for those reports and that information. I'm sure and hope that those positives that have been identified can bear further fruit for the towns and the borough. So the recommendation to note the report. Members happy to note the report? Yeah, that's unanimous. So we'll now move on to item 10, the forward plan. Oops, easy. Any? So the report is for noting. Obviously, members have had opportunity to look into this, and any comments that you wish to make, it's now the opportunity for members to make comment on the forward plan. Any member? Not seeing any indications. As ever, the forward plan is always quite a live document, and if members have got items they wish to raise, they can pick them up with cabinet members, and I'm sure they can be looked into to consider whether they should be appropriate for the council's forward plan going forward. Obviously, there is a lot on our forward plan. We've got a lot of work going on at the moment. So I'm not seeing any member indicating. So we're content to note the forward plan as set out before us. Yep, all agreed. No dissension. Moving on to the work programme. On page 41. Oops, it is. I've gone too far. So, excuse me, again, the report is for noting, for approval. Any members wish to speak or comment in relation to the work programme? 23-24 this is. It's page 41-42, no further comments. Happy to note that report and approve that report. Yeah? No dissension, that's agreed. That's agreed. Item 11, work programme agreed. Item 12, which we've already had, agreed. Item 3, I've not been notified of any other items for the urgent consideration of the committee. So I thank you all for attending. Thank the officers for their reports, and I wish you a safe journey home. Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting.